In the 30th year, in the 4th month, on the 5th day, Ezekiel, a priest, is among the exiles by the Chebar River. The heavens open, and he sees visions of God. A stormy wind comes from the north. A great cloud with fire flashing and a brightness around it. In the fire appears 4 living creatures, each with the form of a man. Each creature has 4 faces and 4 wings. Their faces are those of a man, a lion, an ox, and an eagle. Their legs are straight, and the soles of their feet are like those of a calf. They sparkle like polished bronze. Under their wings are human hands. Their wings touch one another, and they move straight ahead without turning. Beside each creature is a wheel on the ground. The wheels shine like beryl. They are made like a wheel intersecting a wheel. Wherever the living creatures go, the wheels go with them. The spirit of the living creatures is in the wheels. Above the heads of the creatures is an expanse, shining like awe-inspiring crystal. Above the expanse is a throne of sapphire. Seated on the throne is a figure like that of a man. From the waist up, he looks like glowing metal, and from the waist down, he appears as fire. A brilliant light surrounds him. This is the appearance of the likeness of the glory of the Lord. When Ezekiel sees it, he falls face down. Then he hears a voice speaking. The voice tells him to stand, and the Spirit enters him and sets him on his feet. God tells Ezekiel that he is sending him to the people of Israel, a rebellious nation that has revolted against him. Their ancestors have been in rebellion to this very day. God tells Ezekiel not to be afraid of them or their words, even though they are a rebellious house. Ezekiel must speak God's words, whether they listen or refuse. God gives him a scroll written on the front and back, filled with words of lamentation, mourning, and woe. Ezekiel is told to eat the scroll. He opens his mouth, and God makes him eat it. It tastes as sweet as honey. Then God tells him to go to the exiles of Israel and speak his words, whether they hear or refuse. They will know a prophet has been among them. God strengthens Ezekiel and makes his forehead like the hardest stone, harder than flint. He is not to be afraid or dismayed. The Spirit lifts Ezekiel and takes him away. He goes in bitterness and anger of spirit, and the hand of the Lord is strong upon him. Ezekiel comes to the exiles at Tel Aviv, who live by the Chebar River. He sits among them for 7 days, overwhelmed. At the end of the 7 days, the word of the Lord comes to him. God appoints him as a watchman for the house of Israel. If God says to a wicked man, "You will surely die," and Ezekiel does not warn him, that man will die for his sin. But Ezekiel will be held accountable. But if he does warn the wicked man and he does not turn from his evil ways, he will die for his sin, and Ezekiel will have saved himself. If a righteous man turns from righteousness and does evil, and Ezekiel does not warn him, he will die for his sin. But if Ezekiel warns him and he does not sin, he will surely live. The hand of the Lord is upon Ezekiel, and he is told to go into the plain. There, the glory of the Lord appears again, and Ezekiel falls face down. The Spirit enters him and sets him on his feet. God tells him to shut himself inside his house. God says he will make Ezekiel mute, unable to rebuke them because they are a rebellious house. But when God speaks to him, his mouth will be opened. God tells Ezekiel to take a brick and draw Jerusalem on it. He is to lay siege to it symbolically. Building siege works against it. He is to lie on his left side for 390 days, bearing the sin of Israel, and then lie on his right side for 40 days, to bear the sin of Judah. God commands him to eat measured food and drink measured water, showing the scarcity in Jerusalem. Ezekiel protests when God tells him to cook his food over human dung, so God permits him to use cow dung instead. This symbolizes how the people will eat defiled food among the nations. God tells Ezekiel to shave his head and beard with a sword. He is to divide the hair into thirds. 1/3 he burns in the fire in the city, 1/3 he strikes with a sword around it, and 1/3 he scatters to the wind. This act represents what will happen to the inhabitants of Jerusalem. God says Jerusalem has rebelled more than the nations around her. Because of this, God will execute judgments. Fathers will eat their sons, and sons will eat their fathers. A remnant will be scattered to the wind. God's anger will be spent, and he will be appeased. Ezekiel prophesies against the mountains of Israel. God says the high places will be destroyed. Altars will be demolished. Incense, altars broken, and idols smashed. The slain will lie among their idols. Yet God will spare a remnant, and they will remember him among the nations. God shows Ezekiel a vision of a future time when the land will be desolate, and the people will know that he is the Lord. The word of the Lord comes again. Ezekiel is to clap his hands and stamp his feet. A sword is coming upon the people. Calamity upon calamity will come. The sword is sharpened and polished. It is prepared for slaughter. God tells Ezekiel to act out mourning, with bitter groaning and sorrow. People will ask why he is groaning, and he will say it is because of the coming disaster. The sword will strike God's people and princes. Ezekiel is given another message. A prince in Jerusalem will try to flee, but he will be caught and taken to Babylon. His sons and his army will fall by the sword. God will scatter the rest to the wind. This is the judgment that comes for their rebellion. God says that judgment will come on the Ammonites as well. Though they think they are safe, a sword is also drawn against them. The wrath of the Lord will not be held back. God shows Ezekiel the sins of Jerusalem. Her priests have violated the law. Her princes are like wolves, tearing prey. Her prophets cover their sins with whitewash, seeing false visions. The people oppress the poor and commit robbery. God looks for someone to stand in the gap before him, to intercede for the land, but he finds no one, so he pours out his wrath and consumes them with fire. God shows Ezekiel abominations in the temple. In a vision, Ezekiel is taken to Jerusalem and sees idols near the altar. He sees 70 elders offering incense to false gods in secret. Women are weeping for the god Tammuz. Men are bowing to the sun in the inner court. God says he will not spare or listen. Slaughter is commanded. 6 men with weapons enter, and a man in linen with a writing kit is told to mark the foreheads of those who mourn over the abominations. The others are told to kill without mercy, but not to touch those with the mark. The glory of the Lord rises and moves to the threshold of the temple. The man in linen is told to scatter burning coals over the city. The cherubim and wheels are again seen. The glory of the Lord departs from the threshold and moves to the east gate. God tells Ezekiel that the leaders of Israel give wicked counsel. He is to prophesy against them. One of the leaders falls dead as Ezekiel speaks. God says he will gather the exiles and give them an undivided heart and a new spirit, but those who follow idols will face judgment. The glory of the Lord leaves the city and stands on the mountain east of it. The vision ends, and Ezekiel tells the exiles everything he has seen. God makes Ezekiel mute once again and says he will speak only when the Lord gives him words. God gives Ezekiel a parable of a vine that is burned and useless. This is what the people of Jerusalem have become. Though they were planted and strong, they will be consumed by fire for their Jerusalem is compared to an unfaithful wife. God says he found her as a baby and raised her. He adorned her with jewels and made her beautiful. But she trusted in her beauty and became a prostitute, offering herself to every passerby. She built shrines for her prostitution and sacrificed her children to idols. God declares judgment for her sins. He will gather her lovers and expose her shame. Yet, He will remember his covenant and atone for all she has done. God speaks of two sisters, Ohala and Ohor. Ohala is Samaria, and Oholiba is Jerusalem. They both acted in prostitution with the nations. God says both will face judgment and destruction for their actions. God speaks of a riddle about two eagles and a vine. One eagle plants the vine in fertile soil, but it bends toward another eagle. This parable speaks of Israel's rebellion against Babylon. Yet God says he will plant a new sprig that will grow into a noble cedar, representing a future hope. The Lord declares that each soul belongs to him. The soul who sins shall die. If a righteous man turns to evil, he will die. But if a wicked man turns from his sins and does what is right, he will live. God takes no pleasure in the death of the wicked, but desires their repentance. God compares Israel to a lioness, whose cubs become young lions. But they are taken captive. The lioness is like a withered vine, plucked up and cast into the desert. Her branches are consumed by fire. The elders of Israel come to inquire of the Lord, but God refuses to answer them. He recounts their rebellion in Egypt and in the wilderness. Even when he brought them into the land, they rebelled. Yet he promises to gather them from the nations and purify them. God tells Ezekiel to weep and wail, for the sword of the Lord is drawn. It is sharpened for slaughter and polished to flash like lightning. Calamity is coming, and none will escape. Jerusalem is described as the bloody city. Blood is shed in her streets. Her people have defiled themselves with idols and oppression. Her priests profane the law. Her prophets lie and say there is peace when there is none. God tells Ezekiel to act out the exile. He is to pack his belongings and dig through a wall as a sign. He must cover his face so he cannot see the land. This is to show the people what will happen to the prince and the people of Jerusalem. God says the vision will no longer be delayed. What he speaks will come to pass. False visions will cease, and every word will be fulfilled. God tells Ezekiel not to mourn when his wife dies. She dies that evening, and Ezekiel does not weep. This is a sign to the people. Their temple, their sons and daughters, and their pride will be taken, and they will not mourn outwardly. God gives oracles against the nations. Ammon, Moab, Edom, Philistia, Tyre, Sidon, and Egypt will all face judgment for their pride and actions against Israel. Tyre is described in great detail with its wealth, ships, and trade, yet it will fall and be no more. God says that Egypt will be brought low. Its rivers will dry, and its land will become desolate. Pharaoh is compared to a great dragon lying in the Nile. God will draw him out with hooks and leave him in the wilderness. Ezekiel is told to lament over Egypt. Its fall will cause terror among the nations. The day of the Lord is near. The sword will come upon Egypt and its allies. They will be delivered to the grave with the undead. In the 12th year, God opens Ezekiel's mouth. He speaks of the watchman's duty. If the watchman sees the sword coming and does not warn the people, their blood is on his hands. But if he warns them and they do not listen, they are responsible for their own fate. God says that the people come and listen to Ezekiel's words, but they do not act on them. They enjoy his voice like a song, but they do not obey. Still, when the word is fulfilled, they will know that a prophet has been among them. Thank you for watching. The Bible continues.